You know everyone's prayer requests. The marriage that's struggling. The diagnosis that came back wrong. The child who walked away. The job that fell through. You know them because people tell you. Because you're the one they call. You're the one who remembers. Who follows up. Who sends a message 3 weeks later asking how it went. You pray for people who don't even know you're praying for them. And you do it because it's real. Because you mean it. Because somewhere in you, there's a genuine desire to carry what other people are carrying. But there's something you haven't said out loud. Something you've pushed down so many times it's almost disappeared. When was the last time someone asked about you? Not the surface version of you. Not how things are going in that general way that doesn't require a real answer. When was the last time someone sat with you the way you sit with everyone else? When was the last time someone said, I've been praying for you specifically, by name, for this specific thing you're going through? You're trying to remember, and the fact that you have to try says everything. You have been so present for everyone else that no one realized you were missing. And the loneliness of that, being surrounded by people you've loved well and still feeling completely unseen, is one of the most specific kinds of pain there is. Almost no one talks about it, because the people who carry everyone else are supposed to be fine, and you've been very good at seeming fine. Here's what nobody tells you about being the strong one. It becomes a role before you realize it happened. It started naturally. You were there for someone when they needed it. You prayed, and it helped. You showed up, and it mattered. And people remembered. So they came back, and you showed up again. And then it became the expectation. Not because anyone set you down and said, you'll be the one who holds everyone else. But because you never said no. Because saying no felt like a betrayal of something God put in you. So you kept the door open. Through your own hard seasons. Through the moments when you needed someone to show up for you the way you showed up for everyone else. And you told yourself you were fine. Because someone had to be. And now you're tired in a way that's hard to explain. Not burned out exactly, though that's part of it. It's something more specific than that. It's the weariness of someone who has given out what they were never refilled with. Who poured and never once held out their own cup and said, I need someone to pour into me. And now the tank is close to empty. And you're still showing up for everyone. And no one knows. Here's something worth sitting with. The people who carry everyone else almost never ask for help. Not because they don't need it, but because they stop believing it would actually come. It happens slowly. An accumulation of small moments where you reached out and the response wasn't what you needed. Where you try to be vulnerable and the conversation turned back to the other person. And you learned. Not a lesson you chose. One pressed into you by repetition. That asking doesn't really work for you. That the role you occupy doesn't leave room for need. That the person others come to can't also be the person who needs someone to come to them. At least not in any way that gets taken seriously. So you stopped reaching. And you kept giving. And the gap between what you pour out and what comes back and got wider. And now you're here, carrying something that was never meant to be carried alone. By someone who has never asked anyone to carry it with them. And the tragedy of that is not that people don't care. It's that no one knew to ask. Because you never let them see you needed them to. But here's the thing about the role you've been playing. It was never the full picture of who you're supposed to be. Because in Scripture, even the people who carried the most were not meant to carry it alone. Moses interceded for an entire nation. He stood in the gap between the people and God more times than could be counted. And there came a day when his arms grew heavy. He was holding his arms up in prayer during a battle. And when his arms dropped, the battle turned. And Aaron and Hur came and stood beside him, one on each side, and they held up his arms. Not because Moses was weak, because even the one who intercedes for everyone needs someone to hold his arms up sometimes. That's not a failure of faith. That's the design. You were never meant to be the one who gives without receiving. The one who holds everyone else up without anyone holding you. That's not strength. That's an incomplete version of what community was supposed to look like. And the fact that you've been living in that version for so long, giving and carrying and praying while your own arms grew heavier, that's a sign that something is missing, something God intended for you to have. Think about a well, a working one, the kind a whole community depends on. It gives water every time someone comes to it. And the assumption is that because it gives so consistently, it must be full. But a well that isn't fed by underground water eventually runs dry. Not because it stopped wanting to give, because it was never designed to give without being replenished. A dry well doesn't look different from the outside right away. The rope still hangs. The bucket still works. Everything looks operational until someone drops the bucket and it comes back up empty. That's where some of you are right now. Still showing up, still present, still going through every motion of being the one people come to. But when someone drops a bucket into you, when someone actually asks how you are, when someone actually creates space for your need, there's almost nothing left to draw from. Not because you stopped caring, because you were never replenished. And a well that wants to keep giving needs to be fed. That's not weakness. That's how wells work. That's how people work. Elijah called down fire from heaven. He stood alone against 450 prophets and won. He was one of the most powerful intercessors in all of Scripture. And then, immediately after the greatest victory of his life, he collapsed. He ran into the wilderness. He sat under a tree and asked God to let him die. He said, "I have had enough." The man who prayed for an entire nation was done. Not because he was faithless, because he was depleted. And what did God do? He didn't rebuke him. He didn't tell him to get up and pray harder. He let him sleep. And then he sent an angel. Get up and eat. Twice. Because the journey is too great for you. Not, you shouldn't have gotten this tired. The journey is too great for you. An acknowledgement that what Elijah carried was genuinely heavy. And that being met in that need was not a reward for weakness. It was what God does for people who have been carrying too much for too long. He sees them. He comes to them. He tells them to rest before he sends them anywhere else. That's what's available to you, not when you finally break. Now, so let's name what's true. You're not just the one who prays for everyone. You're someone who needs prayer, specific prayer, by name, for the actual weight you've been carrying. Not the general version of you that shows up strong. The real version of you that is tired, that has given more than it received for longer than it wants to admit, that has held everyone else's arms up while its own arms quietly dropped. You are allowed to need that, not as a sign that you failed at being strong, as a recognition that strength was never meant to be a solo performance. The strongest people in Scripture were held by someone. Moses had Aaron and Hur. Elijah had the angel. Even Jesus, in the garden, asked his closest people to stay awake with him. The asking wasn't weakness. It was the most human thing he did. And you are allowed to do the most human thing too. To say, I have been here for everyone, and I need someone to be here for me. Not to the whole room, not dramatically, to one person, in honest words, without performing strength you don't currently have. Because the version of you that never asks, that keeps the door open for everyone while quietly running empty, that version isn't the fullest version of who you are. The fullest version receives as well as gives. Let someone sit with it the way it has sat with so many others. You have spent so long being present for everyone. Let someone be present for you. Before you go, I want you to do one thing. Type these words in the comments. I need prayer too, not as an admission of failure, as an act of honesty. Because the moment you say it, even here, even anonymously, even to strangers on the internet, something in the isolation breaks. And you're not as alone in this as you have felt. There are people in these comments who will pray for you by name, who will show up in the only way they can from where they are. Let them. You've been the answer to everyone else's prayer for a long time. It's okay to be the prayer for once.